Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Kayfabe Central podcast and another episode of the headlines in pro wrestling this week. This is episode 24. I believe I actually didn't even check before this, but I believe this is episode 24 of the headlines in pro wrestling this week. I'm your host, Josh, as always. Joining me is Ruan Wrestling.
Hey guys.
And for the first time on the Kayfabe Central podcast, Lolly Holland.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Of course. So we are going to be doing the usual. If you are returning, then welcome back. You know how this works. We go over everything in the world of professional wrestling. Some TV recap, actually, a lot of TV recap this week. Some new signings to get into as well. So a lot of headlines this week and a lot of things that have happened. Um, and we're going to be talking about TNA at one point and the place that they're in at the moment. Um so yeah, we're gonna get into all of that. Before we do, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell so you're up to date with all the videos, podcasts, and interviews that come to the channel. Subscribe to the Kayfabe Central Ko-Fi page. It's $5 minimum to subscribe to the exclusive wrestling content tier. Make sure you check out the Kayfabe Central website as well. That's where I post all my coverage posts, articles, written predictions, all that good stuff is over there. We also have a group and community section as well on the website. So if you guys want to ask me any questions wrestling related, whether it be my personal opinions about things or news related things, then go ahead and check that out. Speaking of news, I have just created a newsletter, a weekly newsletter. So if you want any updates on upcoming content for the channel, or the Ontario independent scene, or anything like that, make sure you email kfabecentral@gmail.com to get all your weekly updates straight to your email. And if you follow me on social media, you would see that I announced I am doing a new podcast series called Kayfabe Recap every single Sunday, where I preview everything upcoming in the world of professional wrestling. Kind of similar to the headlines, but I just go over upcoming things as well and go over the Ontario independent scene, all that good stuff. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Um, all that self promos out the way. Let's jump straight into the headlines. I want to start off with Monday Night Raw this week, and obviously I did the Raw post show this week, but obviously Ruin, of course, Lolly weren't on there with me. So talk about some things that happened on there. Firstly, the show kicked off with Triple H coming out, the guy who doesn't like being on camera and doesn't like the spotlight, is sure out there a lot on camera. But introduced John Cena, and John Cena came out, did his little, thing. He was in his hometown. So he thanked the audience, all that good stuff. Then got interrupted by Dominik Mysterio. Um, that set up a match between John Cena and Dominik Mysterio for the IC title, and where John Cena became a Grand Slam champion by beating Dominik Mysterio for the title. I don't think this came to a surprise to anybody that John Cena won this title. Um, I think that um, this was bound to happen, and Dominik Mysterio was going to lose that title anyway. Um, I actually don't think he's going to hold that all the way until his retirement match. I think he's going to drop that. Um, and it's very possible that he does, but I think he's going to drop it either next week on Monday Night Raw or at Survivor Series in a rematch to Dominik Mysterio, which is perfectly fine. I can't see him wanting to hold the IC title very long. So I already gave a lot of my opinions on John Cena winning it, so I will pass it over to Lolly. What did you think of this?
I thought it was really interesting. So I think I've mentioned before in a couple of my posts on TikTok that the Intercontinental title seems to have kind of lost a little bit of its prestige over the years. And I think by kind of John Cena winning it back, I wonder if they're kind of building it back up a little bit, which I'm all for, because the Intercontinental title is actually one of my favorite titles. in wrestling. Now, who that goes back to, whether he drops it back to Dominik Mysterio or whether somebody else picks it up, is obviously a completely other debate. But I agree with you. I don't think that he's going to have that title by the time he comes to his retirement in, is it about a month? Is it like a month's time, 4 weeks' time, something
Yeah.
like that? So it'll be really interesting to see how that sort of storyline develops. But yeah, it was a great start to the Raw episode. My favorite thing about that was was with Triple H going on about how everything was subjective, and then talking about how his opinion objectively was the overarching opinion, which I have to say was very Triple H. So it was quite nice to see the old Triple H rear his head again, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a funny segment, as you said, Josh, opened up. It was about 15 minutes too long, where all I had to do was introduce, I was really, really happy coming out of this, more for Dominic. I think it's well known in this podcast that we are big fans of Dominic, particularly myself. I see him as a future world champion, and I didn't think he felt or sounded out of place in the ring alongside Cena. Um, there's more established veterans who have failed and fell at the hurdle of being in the ring with Cena, and infamously being Roman Reigns before Tribal Chief status. So seeing Dominic in there and hold his own in the ring and on the mic was just incredible, and coming out the other side, like this has done so much for him. As you said, maybe he wins the belt back. If not, maybe he just goes on now to go further up the card, and where I think Dominic Mysterio is eventually going to get to. In the terms of John Cena, I do agree. I mean, he obviously can't hold it past his retirement, but I think he's going to lose it on Monday. If he doesn't lose it on Monday, I've also spoken to you about this, Josh, already. If he doesn't lose it Monday to whoever, I think he may hold it to his retirement. And at the minute, I'm still slightly betting on that being Gunther in the final match. And then Gunther just taking it off as Cena, and then going into Mania to do Gunther versus Sheamus for the IC belt, where Sheamus will pick up the belt. So that is one route I see it happening. But I also think there's a strong possibility that Cena loses it on Monday.
So I thought about that Sheamus and Gunther idea, and like at the moment when you told me, I was like, oh yeah, Sheamus and Gunther. And then I thought more about it, and I thought where everything is at the moment, and maybe a little bit of a hot take, I don't really have an interest in seeing Gunther for Sheamus for the IC title at WrestleMania. The more I thought about it, I was like, they can do something a lot bigger. Obviously, I know Sheamus needs that IC title checked off, and which is why I don't think Cena should hold that title until his retirement match. I think that he can drop it to Dom either on Raw or and it's very possible he, like Lawley said, he drops it to somebody else as well. But he drops it on Raw or at Survivor Series, and it's going to be Gunther that wins this tournament. Um, and you get Gunther and Cena. Gunther retires John Cena. And as much as I don't like the guy at the moment, I think that the biggest match you can do for Gunther is Gunther versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Um, you can definitely do a situation where you maybe even put the IC title in a fatal four-way, fatal five-way, six-pack challenge, whatever the case may be, ladder match, where Sheamus wins it there. Um, because I feel like Lolly said, the IC title used to be so prestigious and they called it the workhorse title. And um I feel like you need to have something else there. I don't have an interest in seeing Gunther hold that IC title again. Um I think that you still can have Sheamus win it, whether it be in a one-on-one match against Dom or if it be, like I said, like a six-pack challenge or a ladder match or something like that. Lolly, did you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that. Oops, sorry, I'm knocking everything over. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm just trying to sit here and I'm thinking who would be the best holder for that, because like you say, it is the workhorse title. And I'm just trying to think of people that are sort of coming up, or people that I think should hold the title. And I'm really like struggling. I'm kind of pulling a blank as to who I think should fit into that slot at the moment. And I don't know whether that's because the storylines just aren't gelling or working cohesively at the moment, or whether it is just that there is a lack of people coming up through the ranks at the moment. I can't work that out.
Yeah, you're totally right, actually. I think it's a probably a mix of both because I do agree that I'm actually with you, Josh, even though I predict it's going to happen. I don't really necessarily want to see Gunther with the IC belt. I don't, it sounds a bit far to say I think he's above it. But in the current state, I believe so. But like what Lolly said, I just don't know who else goes into that slot at the minute. And weirdly enough, I can think of some names, and however they're on SmackDown. So I don't know, maybe like a Penta maybe
Mm.
on Raw. But yeah, I'm the same. I don't actually know who's going to fill that kind of space.
The only name on Monday Night Raw that comes to mind, and they do still need to do this match, is Finn Balor.
Mm.
And I think that that Finn Balor and Dominik Mysterio match needs to happen. I don't know if they still plan on it happening. They keep planting these seeds that the Judgment Day is splitting. They could just be waiting for Liv Morgan to come back, and that's when we're gonna get, the official split. Um, because we saw a couple weeks ago on Raw, JD McDonough got some shine on Monday Night Raw. As just himself, and I think he even picked up the win that week, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I can't even remember who he beat now, but it seems to me that they're letting the members of the Judgment Day shine individually. We're seeing Roxanne shine a lot more. We're seeing Raquel shine a lot more. She had a world title match against Stephanie Vaquer. Finn Balor is Finn Balor. We know he can get it done if he's given the opportunity. And I think if you're not going to put that IC title on Sheamus, just have Finn Balor beat Dom for the IC title.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Finn Balor's a really good shout. I actually did also think Penta potentially, because I feel like his popularity is really growing at the moment. And I believe, like, when I was looking at the merchandise sales figures that came out earlier in the week, that he's climbing up those. So I think that would be a really clever position to put him in.
Yeah, I'm all for Penta. I think it's what you always said, Josh, as well. I keep forgetting the Finn Balor storyline's even a thing, which I think WWE seem to as well. I'm cool with Finn winning it actually as well, as you said, because they will eventually need to do that. And to be honest, you kind of like filled a blank for what I said in a video a couple of like last week that I don't have much interest in Finn and Dom in just a one-on-one match if there's nothing on the line. So having, I guess, the IC in the line does make it a lot more interesting. So again, I'm with it. I think I'd say either Finn or Penta I'd be happy with.
I can see them doing a story where Dom pinned Finn Balor this year at WrestleMania to win the IC title, and this coming WrestleMania, Finn Balor pins Dom to win the IC title, and that way, um, Finn gets his revenge or whatever. The way I see it, Finn Balor is going to be the babyface in that situation. Um, as much as the crowd loves Dom, I don't think you turn that man babyface anytime soon. Like
No,
just his facial expressions and everything he did in that segment with John Cena was just perfect. He just looks like a perfect piece of shit, and you cannot take that guy and turn him babyface. Um, so I think Finn Balor would be the babyface in that situation. The only issue I have with that is, has babyface Finn Balor worked a lot in the past? Not really. Other than like NXT. And even with NXT, you can make the argument he may have been like a bit of a tweener. Um, Pure babyface Balor may like may not have worked before, but then you take post Judgment Day babyface Balor and maybe it works a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept. I think also because things move along quite quickly now as well. So everybody's opinions of who everybody is has changed quite a bit with, like you said, Liv Morgan's been out for a while as well. So that's kind of shaken things up a little bit within Judgment Day. And obviously with the crowd being really behind Dominik Mysterio, even though he is a heel, I think that would be a really interesting dynamic to have them face off heel versus babyface. So I think at the end of the day, that would probably add a bit more interest. And also, I mean, the storylines for Judgment Day at the moment have been, I feel like, a little bit lackluster. Like, I haven't really been overly, this is a bit harsh, I haven't really been overly interested in anything that they're doing apart from what Dom's been up to.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. I totally agree. Like for me, the focal point is Dom and where we go next with Dom. Coming back into the fold with Liv Morgan, I think she's going to be a major player. Not that she already was. I think the thing as well with Liv, I don't know where she stands when she comes back because she's going to come back to a major, major babyface pop. And I don't know what direction we take. Will we keep Liv babyface and have Roxanne heel, or we flip it around? Um, and then it's like, who does Dom side with? I think there's so much intrigue there with Dom, but it's sad because I love Finn Balor. I love JD McDonough as well, and I want to see them get their props. So having this Finn Balor and Dom storyline for me, I think that would definitely put some interest in there as long as it's for the IC belt or like has some sort of way with it. And as you said, Josh, I think definitely the right move is they cannot turn Dominik face. Like if they do that, that's it's almost like a death sentence for certain wrestlers, and I think it'll be the same for Dom because the whole point is we love to hate him. We don't just want to love him, and it's just not going to work the same. So that's I would with that I'm standing. I think I'd be happy seeing Finn Balor as the face in that situation.
Yeah, and you brought up the heel and face dynamic with Roxanne Perez and Liv Morgan. I think I brought this up last week. If it were up to me, Liv Morgan would be the heel in that situation. Because you look at Roxanne Perez, and I brought this up when I talked about Kalani Jordan, who we're going to be talking about NXT later on. Um, but you turn Kalani Jordan heel. It doesn't work for Kalani Jordan because she is the most genuine and sweetest person ever, and the gimmick doesn't work for her. It's the same thing with Roxanne Perez. She's doing a little bit better in the gimmick, but Roxanne Perez is just the sweetest and nicest person, and it's really hard to put somebody like that as a heel. And I honestly think Roxanne does a lot better work as a babyface because she gives you that I'm trying to find the word um that sympathy feeling when
Mm.
she wrestles, and when she's getting the shit beat out of her, you're like, oh man, like feel bad for her. And like I think even if she were to turn babyface now after this gimmick, it would be a lot better. Um, but I think Roxanne works a lot better as a babyface. And I know we kind of just like sidetracked away from the IC title. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
So when it comes to Liv Morgan coming back, I don't know if we know exactly when she is going to come back. But I'm just wondering because obviously, sorry, I'm going to jump around a bit to SmackDown now because obviously Charlotte Flair has made her thoughts known that she doesn't want to be involved in the Survivor Series War Games because of the history between her and Rhea Ripley. Could we have like a really surprise babyface turn with Liv Morgan going into that slot potentially?
Ooh,
Hmm.
I actually didn't think of that.
Same to be truly honest. Yeah, Liv never even crossed my mind because I don't know how the recovery is going.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, it could definitely happen. And I think fans would be more than happy to see her in that match. A hell of a match to come back to after coming from returning from injury straight into War Games.
I
Um,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, no, just you can take on. I was just gonna say, yeah, I actually really don't know. It could absolutely see it happening. If she does, but it just depends. I think for me, I mean, I've said it before with Josh. I think at the minute I've got Liv nailed in. I think is my surprise Rumble winner for this year. So spoilers for later on in the year.
I think if there's anybody crazy enough to come back from a fractured elbow straight into War Games, it's Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
Um, she would definitely do that. Um, Going back to the John Cena promo though, he mentioned in that promo that um at Saturday night's main event, there's going to be NXT exhibition matches where NXT talent will be taking on main roster talents. Now, of course, they mention this and don't, talk about it afterwards. They don't announce anything for it. Um, but I think this is really good. And had this been a the Ruthless Aggression pay-per-view that they planned on doing earlier in the year, I think this would have been really cool. And I honestly think that this should be an annual thing that they do, where NXT talent goes, toe to toe with the main roster talent, and it really showcases them a lot. And kind of sidetracking here, when I talked about the Ruthless Aggression pay-per-view, they need to start, if you're gonna do so many Saturday nights main events, call them something. Like,
Yeah.
who is actually gonna be like, oh, do you remember what happened at Saturday night's main event 39? Like, nobody actually is going to remember that. But if you called this like Saturday night's main event Ruthless Aggression, there you
Mm.
go. Now we can talk about it in a few years. Oh, remember Saturday night's main event Ruthless Aggression? Um, so I feel like they should be doing that. But I actually really like this idea. I hope that they, do something more with it and announce something for it. Um, Obviously we have Javon Evans taking on Gunther next week on Raw. I can see Javon Evans being a part of this, because I can see him being someone they want to showcase as much as possible. Um, but yeah, what did you guys think of this?
Well, I think it's definitely something that needs to be done because I don't know if either of you guys saw that was sort of trending around the internet. The average age of the roster in 2025 in comparison to at the peak of the Attitude Era was like 41 now, 32 back then. So I definitely feel there needs to be some fresh blood that's like pumped into the main shows at the moment. So I think something like that would be brilliant because I think there just needs to be a bit more fresh blood because there's something I find that the women's division is a lot more exciting at the moment than the men's. And I think that's because they're pushing fresh talent a lot more in the women's division than the men's. So something like that would be ideal, I think. And I also agree with sort of renaming or naming the Saturday night main events. But then do you kind of fall into the category of they end up being a bit like the in your houses sort
That's what
of
I was thinking of.
pay-per-views from the 90s, which I personally loved, but I feel like it sort of starts kind of being a bit cyclical at that point.
Yeah, it's funny with the naming as well. I thought that exactly the exact same thing. However, I was trying to think of all the really underground ones we had, like Taboo Tuesday, Cyber Sunday, like Unforgiven. I would just call it that instead. Oh, but yeah, but no, I think this is an amazing, amazing idea. Firstly, I think for what Lolly said there, obviously just to showcase the talent is something we need to do. It's something that WWE haven't been the greatest at over the last couple of years of showing off this new talent. There's obviously they clearly have some eyes on people like Javon Evans, as you said, Josh. He will absolutely be a part of this pay-per-view. No doubt about that. He's someone that they have gone not maybe not to this extent, but compared to other members of NXT, like we haven't even seen the likes of Trick or Over on the main roster, where Javon's had multiple matches being showcased. So Javon will definitely be on this. The other reason I think this is incredibly good idea is because no other match that night matters because it's Cena's last match. No, if you put a world title match on that show, yeah, it could be good. No one's going to care. Well, okay, maybe it's a bit far. But do you know what I mean? Like, the whole emphasis is going to be in Cena. Whereas if we have these exhibition matches, which are just there for a little bit of extra excitement, because it's matches we've never seen before and to showcase some new talent, that I think is going to be a lot more palatable for the fans in attendance, people watching at home, than it would be if we had this stacked cards. We've got Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, and all that. Which obviously, yes, they might be on the card, but it's more exciting getting to see them go up against Trick Williams, Ricky Saints, whoever, Javon, obviously. So I think it's a great idea what they're doing.
Yeah, they seem very set on the 2 hour time for Saturday night's main event, despite it not being on NBC anymore. Like we saw with the last Saturday night's main event, they seemed really like adamant about just having it at that 2 hour mark. So I for the December 13th Saturday night's main event, I can see there just being like four matches on the card. Um like maybe I don't even know how many exhibition matches they're going to do. I don't know if like the rest of the card is going to be exhibition matches and then you have Cena's final match or what the case is going to be. But I don't think that there's going to be a lot of matches on that card. Um, Lolly, you brought up that in your house thing. That's actually something I want them to bring back.
Mm.
Um, I think it would be really cool to bring something like that back. Because that's what the Saturday night's main event feels like anyway. So I would be more than happy if they brought something like that back.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I really liked about the In Your House matches is that they didn't necessarily kind of stick to the main storylines that were going out at the time across Raw. I don't think SmackDown was around back then, but it kind of was almost its own little bubble, as it were, which I think meant that they could be a little bit more what's the word? They could be a bit more experimental with some of the matches and the cards that they put together. And I think that worked really well because then you ended up with like some more interesting storylines on the main show that kind of came out of the In Your House events. And I think that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Like you said, there, the fact that they can be a bit more open and experimental, and that's one of the things. As much as we, and we'll get into it, I'm sure, but the reason me and Josh laugh at NXT is because it can be a bit ridiculous. But at the same time, what's great about NXT is they can be experimental. That's the whole point. Is the place to be that, and they can do these wacky matches. And if they don't work, they don't work. It doesn't. Not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't really matter. And I think this would be the same. I think yeah, it would just add a bit more interest, something new, something different. So I would be cool with that as well if they wanted, as you said, to do these Saturday night main events, but make them more like I said, in your house style.
So speaking of John Cena, there is a tournament to determine who his final opponent is going to be. Um, we found out on SmackDown last night who Elliot Knight's opponent was. That happened to be Zack Ryder, not Matt Cardona. Zack Ryder returned to the WWE. I haven't heard anything that he has signed with the company or anything like that. I don't think he has. I think this was just like an appearance, like how he's been doing on NXT. Because obviously, like I know TNA and WWE are working together. He said he's going to be at the TNA taping tonight or whatever. Um, so there's that. Let's talk about that actually. Zack Ryder is actually somebody that Rue brought up before SmackDown when I was talking to him, and he was like, it could be Matt Cardona. Rue, you were wrong. It was Zack Ryder. Two different people. Because Zack Ryder went in there, he returned. He lost to LA Knight. I think everybody expected LA Knight to win that match anyway. When Zack Ryder came out, it was just more of um, oh look who's here kind of thing. I'm glad that they didn't go with somebody that is on the roster. Like I had thoughts in the back of my mind and like I didn't even say it out loud because I didn't want to put it out into the universe that it could have been Austin Theory. Um and I think it's a very good chance that still could be Austin Theory on Monday for Solo's opponent. I'm more thinking that Solo's opponent is just going to be Jacob Fatu on Monday. Um, like I brought up the joke to Rue that maybe it'll be Roman Reigns. But I highly doubt that. I think Roman's going to be in War Games, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Um, but WWE is being very annoying with this tournament, announcing these matches bit by bit, and I completely understand why they're doing it. But uh Solo Sikoa as a mystery opponent on Monday. I think it's going to be Jacob Fatu. There is a good possibility that it's Chris Jericho. I don't know his contract situation. His contract may be up like until the end of the year. Or he may just show up. And his contract is over with. I haven't heard anything regarding his contract. So I have no clue. And Chris Jericho is actually somebody we're going to be talking about on this podcast today as well. But yeah, who do you guys think is going to be Solo's opponent on Monday?
I think it would be interesting if it was Jacob Fatu. But overall, the tournament itself is something that I'm really struggling to like get into. I don't know why, because you'd think that for the retirement tour and things like that, it would be something that would kind of capture the imagination. But I almost kind of just wanted John Cena's like final opponent to just be like a known name, somebody who's coming up the ranks, a bit similar to what his first sort of appearance was like. So for this one, I'm finding it hard to get interested, but just from like a family kind of bloodline point of view, I think that would be quite interesting. You could almost recycle the feud, family feud that you had in the 90s across some of the wrestling families from back then.
Yeah, the whole tournament setup is kind of strange for John Cena's final opponent, especially when people wanting really big names coming into it. And this is the issue, is like see for instance, everyone's throwing around Edge coming back, which for the starters I never ever thought was going to be a thing. It physically just couldn't be. If you were to put Edge in this tournament, he would have to win it. And it makes it a little bit predictable and boring. And it's the same. I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I'm not the biggest fan of the tournament setup so far. In terms of mystery opponents, as you said, Joy, I didn't actually even consider Jacob Fatu. I guess that is definitely a good shout as long as he's back and healthy. I don't think they ever gave a recovery time on his sort of minor injury. He had a notice to do with his teeth, but so Jacob Fatu is definitely a possibility. I'm going to be really boring here and just go for what I think a lot of the internet community are going after and saying it's going to be Joe Hendry. Um, I
Mm.
I know it's the very, very boring, predictable choice. The reason that I'm saying Joe is not so much from a storyline point of view. It's more because now Josh will know I go on about it as well. I've watched Joe his entire career. I'm very in depth with what he said, what he's spoken about publicly, and Joe has been fighting for this John Cena match since day one. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's too far gone for that. But Joe is someone who they obviously spearheaded as the face of TNA during this partnership. He also came in as the partnership, won the TNA World Championship, was on NXT with it. They put him in the Rumble, they put him on WrestleMania as the TNA World Champion. I personally think they might stick Joe in this tournament. Firstly, obviously, to kind of announce the fact that Joe Hendry is now with WWE, as if that was a massive surprise to anyone. Um, but I think is a bit of a thank you and a bit of a reward for Joe. Maybe he gets a backstage segment with Cena, just to shake hands with. Like John Cena is one of Joe's all-time favorites. He's spoken about how much of an inspiration he's been for him. It's more knowing the backstage knowledge that I have about Joe is the reason why I think it could be him here. Is it the most exciting point and does it make a lot of sense? Probably not, but I'll stick with Joe Hendry for that.
I think I would prefer it to be Joe Hendry over Jacob Fatu. Like if you're gonna do these mystery opponents, don't have it be someone on the roster. Like if to me, it's a waste of time if you're gonna be like, oh, it's a mystery opponent. It's just been a guy that's been away for like about a month. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's why, like, if it was gonna be Austin Theory, I wouldn't have been interested in that as much as I like Austin Theory. Somebody on the roster, and people will be like, okay, well, we were expecting something bigger. Like they announced Gunther when he's been off TV for a while, so it's very possible it's going to be somebody out of the company. And like Joe Hendry is probably a better option than Jacob Fatu. As much as I like Jacob Fatu, um, but I don't know if it was someone from NXT, they would have announced it. Um, there, like I said, there's obviously the possibility that it just ends up being Chris Jericho.
Well, if it ends up being Chris Jericho, the tournament almost starts feeling a little bit like with all of these mystery opponents, it sort of starts feeling like a really long, dragged out version of the Royal Rumble.
You know what? I didn't even
Yeah.
think of it that way. Um, Lolly, to your point, the I think the reason this tournament like it's very hard to get behind is because we know how it's gonna end. It's gonna be Gunther that wins this entire thing. Nobody beats Gunther. It rarely happens. He's gonna win the entire tournament and he's gonna beat John Cena in his final match. I think that we're all expecting that to be the case. Now, it is possible that WWE they'll sit down in the back and be like, okay, maybe Gunther is too predictable and they go with like LA Knight or something. Um Again, I don't think LA Knight is a good option to be John Cena's last match. Like Lolly said, it should be someone young and up and coming, someone who has a lot of years left in the WWE. I do not like the fact that we are building this company around people who are 40 plus years old
Mm.
and don't have a lot of years left because when they leave, then you don't really have much backup. Like, yeah, you have, Braun Breaker, you have Jacob Fatu, but man, you need to start building up these NXT guys a lot more um, because you cannot just build your company around a bunch of, 30, 40-year olds forever.
No, and I think one of the other issues that potentially WWE might face with the fact that the majority of the roster are, late 30s, early 40s, in fact, like late 40s, is that at some point you're going to have young fans coming into it, and they're not going to have anybody that they can follow from the beginning to the end, and they'll probably lose interest quite quickly. So then you just end up with like a pure nostalgia style kind of event. And I think that's a very dangerous place to be in. So they need to start bringing, like you say, they need to start bringing people in a lot sooner. Even if they do make mistakes and things like that, that's okay. That used to happen in New Gen, that used to happen in Attitude and things like that. And that was okay that they would go in and they'd learn from their mistakes. I don't really feel like you see that much because it's all been segregated into the main shows like Raw and SmackDown, and then you have NXT and TNA to an extent. So I think that this needs to be a bit of a shuffle, I think.
I think both points there from Josh and yourself, Lolly, it comes back to one that I know we've spoken about at length, Josh, but I personally have speaking about this whole people wanting Cody Rhodes to turn heel. And my point is it something maybe down the line I'd like to see, definitely, but it makes no sense at the minute because there's
Mm.
no one who's been built up to that standard who, as you said, Lolly, who the new generations coming up can look at to be like, this is our Cody Rhodes. Like for the likes of myself and Josh, it was John Cena for us.
Mm.
He was the superhero, and that's what Cody Rhodes is right now to all these young fans in and around the world. But we don't know who's going to be the next Cody Rhodes,
No.
and they have a complete lack of wanting to build up. Now, maybe it is Javon Evans because we have said, he's being very, very put at the forefront for WWE's eyes, but they're taking a very slow burn at it. So I totally agree. Like they need to start building up new stars, especially from a babyface point of view, because they're
Mm.
obviously already doing it with the likes of Dom and Braun. However, there's no way in hell Dom and Braun are becoming babyface anytime soon. So we need some new up and coming baby faces to be said, this is going to be our guy. This is going to be the star of the company who's going to face the likes of Dominic and Braun at the top over the next 10, 15 years.
So this next point that I'm gonna bring up that happened on Monday Night Raw. We're gonna tie it into one of the other points, was just the War Games match, because on Monday Night Raw, the Kabuki Warriors beat Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss for the Women's Tag Team Championships. This didn't come to a surprise to me. I don't think it came to a surprise to anybody. I'm a little bit sad that the reign of Charlotte and Alexa is over, because I think that they were doing really good stuff with those titles, and that was honestly my favorite version of Charlotte Flair.
Mhm.
And she was just doing so good in that role. Um I like the fact that um hmm, excuse me, she didn't turn on Alexa Bliss, because Lolly brought it up earlier on SmackDown last night. I almost forgot what day it was. On SmackDown last night, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky came out and introduced Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair as their tag team partners for the War Games match. And so they came out, and I was watching with my sister at this point, and I brought up the fact that Charlotte Flair hugged everybody except for Rhea Ripley. And
Mhm.
in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, maybe I'm reaching a little bit. Maybe they just, I'm thinking too much about it. Come to find out, I was not. And Charlotte Flair told Rhea Ripley that she doesn't trust her. She thinks that she's a snake. And Charlotte said Rhea probably thinks the same things about her, understandably so. And Charlotte said because of that history she has with Rhea Ripley, she cannot be a part of this War Games team, and walks out. So a couple things here. I don't know the numbers that they're going for these War Games matches. I don't know if they're going to stick with a 4-on-4 scenario or 5-on-5 scenario until last night, because Rhea Ripley said that she now has to find two more partners, which tells me that somebody else is being added to the heel side of things to make that five. Now, I don't know about the babyface side of things for the women's, because and we'll talk about the women's first, and then we'll jump into the men so we're not like all over the place. Um I don't know if this is going to be one of those things where they're trying to build a story within the bigger story, where it's like, I we don't know if Charlotte Flair's gonna show up. I've texted and called her, and then come War Games, she does show up, because they did that with Randy Orton um in 2023, where it was like Cody announced that Charlotte was that Randy Orton was a part of the team, sorry. And but then they played it as, oh, we don't know if he's actually gonna show up. And then obviously he shows up, and that's that. So I don't know if that's the route that they're taking. I do know that they seemed keen on doing that Charlotte Flair and Jade Cargill match for the women's championship. Um, and honestly, I wouldn't be mad if Charlotte Flair just beats Jade for that title, even though I think that their plan is Jade versus Bianca at WrestleMania. Um, but they seem adamant about that, which could lead to Jade being the fifth person on the heel side for War Games.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting one because from the SmackDown segment yesterday, to me it seemed as though they were trying to position Charlotte more as a singles competitor again. So that would make sense if they want her to go against Jade Cargill. But I also just wanted to highlight that I thought that the beginning bit that you mentioned was a really great piece of in-ring storytelling, because I was just like, oh, that was a bit weird that she avoided Rhea. And then obviously our gut feeling was like correct when she then went on to say about the fact that she didn't trust Rhea. But I'm really interested to see how this goes. There could be several avenues that they go down along the storyline for this. They could even kind of have it on the night itself that potentially Charlotte comes through and helps the sort of babyface side win through, I don't know, interfering with the game somehow, or she could be a late minute, you know, part of the team, like you've mentioned. I'm just intrigued to see how that pans out. And we need to kind of talk about who other heels could be on the other side. I mean, I there's a lot. I mean, I actually would like be quite interested to see this. I hope I'm saying her name right. Zelina, who's obviously with Alistair Black, get a bit more of a push and sort of outside of his shadow a little bit because she seems great. So I don't know if that's something that anybody would think about, but that's personally something that I'd like to see.
It's a really out there shout. I really like it actually. Zelina being put in that position. I'm going to be very boring here. So apologies. I think it's just going to be Becky and AJ Lee. They get added to both sides of the teams. The interesting part for the faces is obviously, as you point out, Josh. They now need two. So maybe it is Charlotte. I don't know. Maybe they try factor Bailey into the match. She also has a bit of history with well, pretty much every woman in that match. Um, I don't know. So the second one, I'm really not too sure on who it'll be. I think it's going to be AJ and Becky, and they'll go off on each other in the War Games match, and then eventually down the line that will lead to their singles match at some point. It's a very boring, I guess, an uninspired choice, but I think that's just the route they're going to go down. Especially with this upcoming match on Raw between Maxine and Becky. I know we've been speculating for literal months now about when AJ is actually going to be coming back. Ever since the match at Clash and back, not Clash, sorry, WrestlePalooza. Um, I think this, if they are going to go down that route, this match on Monday seems to make sense between Becky and Maxine. Have Becky just be this horrible, horrible person after the match, beating down Maxine. AJ comes out to make the save, and then both of them go off to their respective sides of the War Games match. Maybe the slightly boring choice, but that is the way I think I'm going to go.
The only thing with that, because I was saying Becky and AJ at first too, but with War Games is 2 weeks away, and we have the Becky and Maxine match for the women's IC title this Monday night on Raw. I don't know if we're going to have, you know, Becky and Maxine, AJ return, and then both women uh interact with the women in the War Games match all in the span of a night. Like it could happen on the Go Home show somehow. But like they haven't interacted at all. Like Becky hasn't interacted with either side of the women's War Games matches at all. Um, Bailey is actually a good shout, and it honestly just could end up being Bailey and Lyra added to the babyface side of things. Um, on the heel side of things, I think that they're just gonna go the even more blend route and put Jade Cargill in there.
Yeah, I mean, it probably will be. It probably will be the most obvious. It will be the most obvious route, won't it? But I mean, I think Bailey would be interesting because I really feel like, I mean, but also like her storyline with her split personality that seems to have dwindled somewhat over the last couple of weeks. So I wonder if maybe they could do something alongside that, where maybe she agrees to be on both sides as a heel and a and baby face. I mean, that would be quite funny, wouldn't it?
So I feel like weirder things have happened in the WWE. I think that's actually quite interesting. Or they have her be on one side, but like not not have her like a heel turn in the match. But I said just her split personality comes out. Because that's something you're totally correct with. It's I guess on a slight tangent here. I'm really sad about because I was really enjoying the Bailey
Mm.
character and what they were doing. And then I kept saying every single week in my Raw previews, I was like, "We need to do something. Come on, let's keep going. Let's do something." And they never did. And as you said, it seemed to have just completely sort of dwindled away, which is really sad. I want to bring it back. I was enjoying it. But I think I think Bailey and Lyra. If it isn't Becky, I think Bailey and Lyra are probably the shout for the face side.
Um, so we also had the setup for the men's War Games match as well, where uh Punk, Jay and Cody all got into a brawl with the Vision, alongside Logan Paul. And backstage, CM Punk went up to Adam Pearce and was like, tell Paul Heyman he needs a team. Punk calls over William Regal, who just so happened to be roaming around backstage on Monday Night Raw. And William Regal said the War Games thing. Um, you could just imagine, William, hey, what do you do here, Regal? Once in a while they call me over to say a word. Um, so Regal makes War Games official. On SmackDown last night, Jimmy Uso told Cody Rhodes that he is added to the War Games match, so he is on the babyface side on War Games. Now, I noticed something. I brought this up in my SmackDown post show last night, and I don't know if either of you noticed this. When Jimmy told Cody that he talked to Punk and he was on the War Games match, Jey Uso didn't look happy. He
Mm.
didn't look like he was happy Jimmy talked to Punk and not him. And I could have been reaching a little bit. I didn't write anything on the website because I'm like, okay, maybe it's just, Jay being Jay. Um, but you look at his facial expressions in that segment, he didn't look a whole lot happy that Jimmy was added to the War Games match. And I don't want that to end up being Jimmy versus Jay again. I don't have any interest whatsoever in seeing that match again. Um, because it was just a disappointment at WrestleMania when it happened. But that was just a little thing to point out. And then we got the addition of Drew McIntyre on the heel side for War Games. Um, and that completely expected. And the question again is, are they going to do 4-4 or are they going to go for the 5-on-5? I assume they're going to do the 5-on-5 because that's what they've been doing for the past few years, especially with the men's War Games matches. But they have done 4-on-4 before. But if they're doing 5-on-5 with the women, I don't see why they wouldn't do 5-on-5 for the men. In terms of the next people added to this match, I think that I don't want to say it's a guarantee, but it's a very high possibility Brock Lesnar is the fifth man for the heel side. Um, on the babyface side of things, I don't know. I'm going to assume it's just going to be Roman.
Mm. That would probably make the most sense, to be honest, especially because obviously with the Paul Heyman and all of the history that's gone before, that would make the most amount of sense. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Brock Lesnar or Logan Paul,
Yep.
so um, I kind of obviously on the babyface side here. What I do love though is Drew McIntyre being involved because I really want that guy to get a belt around his waist at some point. I think he's worked incredibly hard, and I was really frustrated. I know I probably wasn't supposed to be rooting for him against Cody, but I really wanted him to win that title. So that's the bit that I'm finding the most exciting about the prospect of that match.
Hey, you're fine. I think we all feel the exact same way on everyone,
Yep.
everyone there. Because I mean, I think Josh is right. I probably see it being Brock, but we've spoken at length. I'm happy with my WWE without Brock, and not even just for the obvious reasons. I've just never really been a fan of Brock Lesnar. Just he's never done it for me. So I can see them probably doing it though, which is a bit frustrating, but is what it is. On face side, yeah, as you said, Roman Reigns probably. I just don't know who else it'd be. Definitely not LA Knight. You screwed that chance. Um,
Yeah, WWE just
unfortunately,
said fuck that guy.
like they're like, nope. Yeah, that's going to be one of them what ifs in wrestling. Maybe we see it in a documentary of whether or not it was meant to be Cody's spot or not. Yeah, it is a bit uninspiring, the whole Brock Roman thing. Is it Drew though? I'm very happy about. Obviously, I'm incredibly biased towards Drew McIntyre. I want that man to have the world. But yeah, I'm cool with this as long as one thing I will say, what I'm really interested in, I'm sure I'm not the only person that thought about this, is getting to see Drew and Punk face off again. I
Mhm.
actually hope them too, if that's the way they're going to go, start off the matches. I think that would be very cool. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get as bloody as the Hell in a Cell match, but it's we can only hope. But yeah, hope it leads for good things for Drew down the line, and hopefully he gets the final bloody rematch with Cody or someone and wins that belt because I just need him to do it for me, my own selfish gain. Now I need Drew McIntyre to win that goddamn belt.
Um, so I realized I didn't even mention who was on the heel side for the women's war games. It's Asuka, Kairi Sane, Lash Legend, and Nia Jax thus far. Um, by the way, I want to give a shout to Lash Legend. She has been looking
Mm,
Hmm.
fantastic these past few weeks. The forearm that she does, it just looks brutal. Oh my gosh. Um, like if like something else I brought up last night, if JC Jane wasn't doing the rolling encore as a finish, I think that Lash Legend could use that forearm as a finish. Um like I know it's a forearm and technically it's a very generic move, but when Lash Legend does it, it could be believable as a finisher. I don't know if it is her finisher. I could be wrong and that is her finisher, but um I don't know what her finisher is, but that man, she's looking fantastic, and I'm happy that she's getting a chance to shine.
yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like legitimately quite scared of her. I'm quite scared of her. So you know that she's doing a great job when she comes on, and I'm like, oh God, I feel sorry for whoever's going up against her next. But yeah, I think I think that's probably weirdly, well, probably not so weirdly, that match I'm probably more excited about than the men's war game match, purely because she's involved and the dynamic between her and Nia Jax is actually great at the moment. Because for me, I was watching Nia Jax and she was falling like a little flat for me for a while with the introduction of Lash. I think she's become a lot more dynamic, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of them, but luckily for me at a distance.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm a massive fan of Lash Legend, and I was slightly worried when they disbanded the Metaphor. I was a bit worried she might just fall into the Maracede role and what happened with her there, obviously former Jakara Jackson. But I'm glad that she's been recognised as having the talent to come up onto the main roster. And I think, yeah, the partnership with Nia has actually been really, really great. She is legitimately terrifying. I wouldn't want to be in the ring with her at all. But yeah, in the women's war game match, I will be more than satisfied as long as I get to see Io jumping off the top with a bin on her head again. That's all I'm here for, and that's where I'll leave it.
Um, so that's that. Let's move on to um the I was trying to find a very unique word to describe NXT. But we're just gonna move on to NXT because some interesting things happened. Firstly, Jasper Troy defeated El Grande Americano to win the Speed Championship, which I expected. I predicted him to win it. I think it makes the most sense to have that Speed title on NXT. However, after Jasper Troy won the Speed title, Jasper Troy cuts a promo and says, I'm probably the last person you think of when you think of Speed, but I'm going to beat anybody to retain this title. I'm like, okay, and then gets told to shut up by Dark State. Like, okay, sure. The guy wins a title and you kind of just say, okay, well, we don't really care anyway. Um but I think him holding that title, it gives him something to do. Um, I will say I am getting so annoyed with the sound effects of his chains that they keep playing on NXT, because it's obviously not his actual chains. Because a couple weeks ago he was just standing in the crowd, and unless they have very, very strong microphones up there in the crowd, or Jasper Troy was mic'd up, there's no way in hell you'd be able to hear his chains. And they just kept playing this chain sound effect over and over. Um, and oh man, it was so irritating. But yeah, Jasper Troy is the speed champion. And I like that for him. I think the speed title should be on NXT and not on somebody that bounces or is technically on the main roster.
I might have to dip out on the NXT chat because I haven't been watching it. But what I will say on the sound effects is WWE needs to remember how much people hate the laughing audience sound on comedies and maybe take that into account moving forward.
Oh man.
I mean, yeah, I'm happy with putting a sound effect over the NXT crowd. I hate the NXT crowd so much; they actually annoy me.
Yeah.
Um, as Josh is more than doubt held. Yeah, no, we said this last week, Josh, that I think it's the right move for Jasper Troy. You know my own feelings on the Speed title is not something I'm a massive fan of. I think putting it on up talent who are towards the top of the card, or and the up and coming talent, I think it's more of a crutch than it is helping people. So putting it on someone like Jasper Troy, obviously former winner of LFG, someone who could go on to do amazing things, but is just getting started in his career, I think is a good spot for him and a good showcase for him. So this is the one of the few times I'm positive about the Speed Championship and say I think this is the absolute correct move. The guy looks like an absolute beast in there as well. So yeah, happy for Jasper Troy, and I think for once with the Speed title, we're actually moving in the right direction.
Um, we also had a last man standing match on NXT for the NXT Championship. Ricky Saints defeated Trick Williams. Also, for some reason, on I can't remember which what I was doing, whether it was a podcast episode or if it was a TikTok. For some reason, whenever I said this match, I kept saying Tricky Williams. And I just for some reason couldn't stop. I don't know if Santino's voice was stuck in my head when he always said Tricky Williams, but like it like Tricky and Ricky I kept getting it mixed up. But that's beside the point. Ricky Saints retained against Trick Williams, and after the match, Obafemi's music hits, and then the show ends. Um, because they ran out of time. And that's why I brought up the time management on this episode of NXT, and I think last night on SmackDown as well was not good. Um, and that's what happens when you book a last man standing match on just a regular episode of NXT and have a bunch of things before it. Um, I don't know why this match wasn't at Gold Rush, but it seems I don't know if it got made official. But I did see a report that it's going to be Ricky Saints versus Obafemi for the NXT Championship at Gold Rush, which means he's sticking around in NXT for a while. I don't understand why. I think he should be called up to the main roster. There's really nothing he has left to do in NXT. I don't think you should do a rematch with Ricky Saints because I feel like Obafemi is somebody you need to protect as much as you can. He was dominant with that title, with the NXT title, and he loses it, send him up to the main roster. And that's the best option you can do. But no, he returned to NXT, and it seems like he is going for a rematch against Ricky Saints, which is kind of a lose-lose situation there because I don't think Obafemi should win that title back and stick around in NXT longer. And I don't think that Ricky Saints should beat him again. So I honestly don't understand why they're going in this direction.
Do you want me to jump in, or have you got any
Yeah, I was
thoughts
going to say this is
there?
I'm like completely straight over my head on this.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely fine. I'll jump in. Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement on this. I think firstly I'll say the match was very, very fun. Was a big fan of that spear from the crowd, kind of down through the announce table. Thought it was very cool. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. The time management of this show was all over the place. I don't know if it was just the last match or not, but something ran over majorly because that Obafemi return it was almost to the point it was in typical NXT fashion. It wasn't even bad, it was just funny. Like I was just laughing when I see you just seen. I mean, in some ways it was kind of cool because all you seen was Overshadow and that was it. But I think it was a big mistake on their part. But yeah, in the terms of the match, I have seen this as well, Josh. You're correct that apparently it is going to be Ricky versus Ober, which you've worded it perfectly. That's a lose-lose situation to me because I don't think Ober has anything else to do in NXT. So if he's going to win that match and now become the new NXT champion. I don't see the point of that or what that does for anyone. However, that would also mean that he would then be losing a second time in a row to Ricky Saints, which I don't think is any good. As you said, he needs to be kept strong. And he's going to be losing back-to-back matches to Ricky, or they just get the match thrown out, which is equally a very boring choice, probably by Dark State, because they ruin everything. I haven't even got into my Dark State rant yet of today, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of this match if they do it. However, the last man standing match I thought was very fun.
It was definitely really fun, and I want to explain this to Lolly how this went down. So Ricky Saints wins the last man standing match. We're at the 9:59 point at this. So the show is pretty much done. At
Mhm.
9:59, Obafemi's music hits. The time hits 10 o'clock. Almost as soon as Obafemi's music hits, the show ends.
Oh
They
God.
don't even they barely even show Obafemi.
He's Shadow, and that's it.
Yeah. Like I get it. I know on the CW the news is right after. Um So they have to end at exactly 10. But man, you knew you were having a last man standing match as your main event. You know a last man standing match is going to go long because it needs to with the last man standing match. Why couldn't you manage some things better? And I think everything else that happened on NXT was just, it just wasn't that great. Um, and
Was
you
it
really,
obvious that anybody had gone over time then earlier in the show, or
um,
I don't know if I don't know if I would say obvious. I mean, I would have just straight up cut Dark State. We didn't need them. It was fine.
oh man. Yeah, I don't even have Dark State written down on the headlines this week because man, they need to go. I've been calling them Dork State for a reason because every week they just look more dumb. Um like you had Javon Evans outrun each member of Dark State and win the match and be able to run out to the back. And then this past week on NXT, Javon Evans comes out and he says at Gold Rush, it'll be Javon Evans and Leon Slater versus Dion Lennox and Osiris Griffin for the NXT Tag Team Championships. So Leon Slater is up on the Tron, supposedly still in the UK. And Dark State comes out and they look to jump Javon Evans. But Leon Slater was actually in the back and he came running out and they fought off Dark State 2-on-4. How can you have the numbers advantage every single week and get your ass kicked? That doesn't make any sense to me.
no?
Um, this faction needs to go. It sucks. It's you know what? It's the worst thing about NXT right now.
It's the
Um,
worst and best.
it's it's terrible. I liked the guys individually, except for Cutler James. I don't know what his purpose is. But Saquon Sugars, a lot of potential. Dion Lennox and Osiris Griffin, keep them as a tag team. I think that they could be a good tag team. And if you want to build a team like OTM up, that's a big, muscle man clash, a lot of meat slapping meat kind of thing, if you will. Um, so that's definitely a match they could do down the line. But man, Dark State as a whole just needs to go.
I look. This is what my therapy for each, like at the end of each week, is just thinking of, man, what can I say about Dark State this week? Last week I compared them to the bloody NWA. Um, Look, I think you had it perfectly, Josh. I said individually, bar one person, they are great. We talked about. I was in your live for Halloween Havoc just gone there, was it, for the Dark State Hardys match?
Yeah.
Look how much better that match was when it went from four members of Dark State to two. What faction gets better with less people? Like, like on the match somehow gets better. So yeah, I said Dion Lennox, Cyrus Griffin, great, keep them as a team. I actually think there's some potential there. Seiko Sugars, as you said, great individual performance. I think you said put him with OTM. I think that's a hell of a good shout. Cutler James is where my issue lies, and I feel bad just ripping on this guy each week. But I said it to you, and it's partly as a joke, but it's also not. When they cut promos, they are quite good. They're very intense and go, okay, cool. And then Cutler James speaks, and all credibility from the promo just gets chucked out the window. And I've gone back to being, oh, lol, dark state. It isn't working for me either cut. It's, again, I do feel bad saying it. Like, I don't want to sit here and be like, "Oh, this man's so bad, get him out." But either cut Lil James from Dark State, or just disband the group on a whole and just continue as a tag team. I would be a lot happier then, because the fact that they're two-time NXT tag team champions just hurts my soul.
Um, so yeah, that's our weekly Dark State rant. We had oh man, I don't even have my NXT coverage in front of me. I completely forgot what oh right, Thea Hale defeated Alba Fire on this week's episode of NXT. Obviously Thea Hale is now partnered with Joe Hendry, and they're doing a thing. Thea Hale has a new theme song. It sucks because they have the thing that at the start where she talks and then they play the song. God, I can't wait for Def Rebel to just leave. But uh Thea Hale and Joe Hendry are obviously going after the AAA Mixed Tag Team Championships, or as you know, Ethan Page and Chelsea Green would say, the Triple A Mixed Tag Team titles. Um, I'm glad that Thea Hale is doing something. Um, and like because I like Thea Hale. And this is going to tie into something else that I have as well with Joe Hendry signing with WWE, which we mentioned earlier. Um, I don't think that Thea Hale and Joe Hendry are going to win those titles. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Here's the thing I have with Joe Hendry right now, and this will explain my reaction earlier when Rue brought up Joe Hendry for the Last Time Is Now tournament. How long is this gimmick going to last?
Mm.
And um, with Thea Hale now being added to it, I don't think this saves the gimmick at all. As I think, if anything, with Thea Hale now doing the say her name and she appears, um, I think it's going to have people tired of this gimmick a lot quicker. Um, because and like Rue, I know you have a lot of faith in Joe Hendry. You were telling me he's somebody who adapts no matter the situation, and I don't put that past him. Um, but I feel like we need to start from now adapting to a potential backup plan if this gimmick doesn't carry all the way through. Because we've seen a lot of Joe Hendry, and you know, every week on NXT, it's say his name and he appears. Eventually, and we see this every single time in wrestling, like even with Jey Uso, there's a lot less people yeeting in the crowd. Um, People are going to get tired of it. People don't like seeing the same thing every single week. And um, they're going to need to come up with something different at some point.
Just from like an outsider point of view, I'm already tired of it. I've seen clips obviously on TikTok and Instagram and things like that, and he's only now obviously just signed on to the main roster. And I'm already a bit like, well, what's going to come next? And I think you're correct. You know, there seems to be less people yeeting, if that's the term that you use for that. And I'm already wondering, where does you know, Jey Uso go with that gimmick? And the Joe Hendry one is much more, dare I say, irritating. And I think it's actually going to be very limiting for him. I obviously don't know too much about him, but obviously you've said that you're like really backing him and he's a really hard worker. And I don't, you know, think that that's not true. But it's almost like when you go back to like the Attitude Era, with Billy Gunn when he was Mr. Ass. I mean, that took him nowhere. It was like a really limiting gimmick, and he was an incredible wrestler. I mean, he's still in incredible shape now, but I think these gimmicks are really great to kind of get your name out there. But I mean, it's going to have a really short shelf life, surely.
Yes, absolutely. We spoke at this offline, Josh, and the fact that what you have both said is entirely correct. You know my feelings about Joe Hendry. And yes, are they kind of layered in a bit of biasness because of how long I've watched him get to this point? Absolutely. The thing is, and this was explained to Josh, with Joe, I described him almost as ICW, so the big pro champion in Scotland. They are Chris Jericho. Him adapting to whatever situation being put in front of him has been one of his strong points. The issue is obviously when you're on the indies, even in TNA, I guess to an extent, he has a lot more creative control over that. It, if he's going to be shoehorned in now by WWE, and I wouldn't put it past him to be like, you're the say his name man, he's he's done for. I'll be the first person to say it. It's not going to last. It will be novel. I think they'll maybe get another year at most of stretching it
Mm.
before people are done. The thing with Joe, and straight away, I'll say to you is like, use that obviously from just seeing him on NXT. Joe Hendry is an incredible heel. He is the biggest prick on the planet. And that's the type of exactly is he absolutely is like he was absolutely hated in ICW. People hated Joe Hendry's guts around 2016, 17 time when he was in ICW. He's a really, really good arseholey heel, kind of almost like a corporate stooge, almost similar to what I think people when they think of a heel Cody Rhodes and what that would be. Joe
Mm.
Hendry was kind of like that in ICW. My so I know Joe can do it. I have, as you pointed out, I have the faith in Joe, 100% in the backing of Joe. Where my concern is, sorry, is with WWE and how they want to let him handle this. Because everything you both said is 100% correct. Because even myself, like I enjoy seeing it because even to me, it's still a bit of a novelty to see Joe Hendry on NXT. It's not something I thought I would ever see, but there's not a lot of substance there. I said I started off when he popped out the bin, got a laugh or whatever, but that's about it. I want a bit more. I need a bit more. And I said if they give Joe the tools and say go off, this is what we want, go do it, he will do it 100%. The issue is if they basically, if Joe comes to him and says this is what I want to do, and they go no, come pop out of a bin again, that's where the issue is going to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So Joe Hendry signs with WWE. Obviously, the place he was before was TNA, and that leads me to my next topic. And what I have written down word for word, is what the fuck is going on with TNA? Um, so they lose Joe Hendry, and that's fine. We expected that to happen. Um, but at the it was just a regular TNA show, actually, a TNA Impact episode. It was a live edition. Um, Mike Santana takes on Frankie Kazarian for the TNA World Championship, and Frankie Kazarian hits the worst roll up I have ever seen in my life and
Tragic.
beats Mike Santana for the TNA World Championship. I don't understand this. I literally just saw Mike Santana with that TNA World Championship in person. By the way, the guy high fives really hard. Almost broke my hand. I'm not high fiving that guy ever again. But um, this sucks for Mike Santana. And like I know Mike Santana, he's a professional. He's gonna be like, oh, it's it's wrestling or whatever. But as somebody who is sitting here and watching and has watched Mike Santana's evolution going from, the Santana and Ortiz era in AEW all the way until this, it makes me a little bit sad for him. I'm like, wow, you guys really you take a break from tapings for about a month. You come back and on the first episode, you have Mike Santana lose the TNA World Championship. And then you do this work where Santana isn't showing up for signings. He isn't showing up for the tapings, but he's booked for TNA Turning Point. That happened last night as a tag team partner with Steve Macklin, um, against who was it that they faced? Was it Kazarian and Nemeth?
Yeah, because they didn't know.
Yeah. So as you can tell, I did not do coverage for TNA Turning Point. Um, I will start doing my coverage for TNA starting this Thursday. This week has just been a very weird week. But man, what is going on with TNA? And I know a lot of people that are close with people in TNA, like Jody Threat, a current TNA superstar, was a former coach of mine when I was wrestling. And so I know like a lot of what's going on there, but man, what is happening right now? It's like every single week I lose more faith in TNA.
Rue, I think I'll let you take this one.
Sure, I was going to ask you what to be do. Yeah, lol TNA. That's what I woke up to and messaged Josh straight away. Like, what is going on in this company? Yeah, I agree. This is a baffling decision. And it's getting harder and harder for me to be on the side of TNA when they make decisions like this. I will try to say, I'll try to take the positive outlook in the fact, and we also spoke about this offline, Josh, and I hope you don't mind me saying your idea as well here, because I thought I totally agreed with you on it. Um, I don't think they would have done this to Santana if they didn't have big plans for him. It has been reported that Santana is incredibly well liked backstage at NXT. Go figure. Apparently Shawn Michaels is a massive, massive fan of his, same as he was for Joe Hendry. And recently we heard that um with Joe signing with NXT, I think he still had about a month left on his TNA contract, but Shawn Michaels pushed for WWE to basically buy out the kind of release cause for him. I could potentially see a world where that might be the case for Santana, with NXT are very, very high on him and they want him over on their side, because otherwise this makes no sense. Like, I guess maybe for like Lolly's benefit, I mean, this is maybe a bit of extreme a comparison here, but this was like the equivalent of Cody finally beating Roman for the belt and then like losing it like a month later to like, I don't know, Punk or someone. Like, this guy that loads of people have been clamoring for to win the belt. This guy is just worked so hard. Wins the belt and then it gets taken off him, and within not even a month. It's a bit weird.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think potentially that Santana might be getting signed to NXT. Unless there's been a major falling out backstage that we don't know about. But then, as I said, Joshua, we don't mind me saying this here. You brought up the great idea, the idea that I totally agree with you, that I don't actually think Santana is a great fit on NXT for the simple fact that he's too serious. Like, NXT is designed for like the likes of Joe Hendry that we're laughing at. And don't get me wrong, they can do serious and they can do, but Santana is even past that showmanship seriousness. He's a brawler. And I think he
Mm.
would be better suited on the main roster, like, and that's what Josh was saying to myself last night when we were speaking about it. And it's something I agree with. If they're going to bring him in, just put him there. But the issue is, I don't know if enough people with higher up in WWE even know who Santana is, and I think they are definitely going to be worried about what the casual audience would think. With doing that, so I think he would go to NXT first. But I I don't know. I want the world for Santana. I absolutely love him. I was so happy when he won that TNA World Championship. But yeah, to wake up to the news that he'd lost it to Frankie Kazarian, um, wasn't what I was expecting, and it severely pissed me off.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a very like potentially weird comparison. I think Mike Santana is what WWE wanted Jey Uso to be. Um,
I can see that.
and that obviously didn't work. And like he doesn't fit NXT. Like you look at the guy and he just looks like he's ready to fight all the time. That is not the NXT vibe of things. Like literally, even at Destiny Wrestling when I saw him in person, he looked like he was gonna fight me. I was scared. Like the guy is much bigger in person, by the way. And man, like I can see him fitting so well on the SmackDown roster at the moment.
Mm.
Yeah, I think SmackDown probably similar. Like he's the type of guy like he would be so suited to a WarGames match. That's the irony of where we are right now. Yeah, just someone who comes in like give him like a Hell in a Cell or a street fight against like Damian Priest. Like they just want the guy's just a brawler. That's what I want to see. Whereas like as you point, I just don't see how that fits into the weird glam and sparkle and just ridiculousness that is NXT. Unless they just put him up against Dark State again, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I hate Dark State. But yeah, no, I'm with you though. Where I would think Santana would be very, very good on SmackDown. See, especially like Santana and Elio as like an open challenge prize. Yes, please. Like that would be a hell of a match.
So as much as we, don't like TNA at the moment, there is a fellow Canadian that believes that TNA Bound for Glory came across as the number two company in the world, and that is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho went on his podcast and said when he watched TNA Bound for Glory, it seemed like they were the number two company, and went as far as to say that it felt like and looked like a WrestleMania. Um, Now I'm not here to say which is the number one or two company. I think every company has its pros and cons. Um, but and like when it comes to Chris Jericho, sure, he's a fellow Canadian, but whenever he speaks, I don't really have any interest in what he has to say because he has certain political opinions that I don't agree with. Um, but a WrestleMania, like, look, TNA Bound for Glory was not the best Bound for Glory to begin with, but to compare it to a WrestleMania, think is a little bit absurd. And I understand what Chris Jericho's doing here. He's going to come back to the WWE, and like that's not an official report or anything. So nobody like take that as like, oh, I heard that he's coming back to WWE. I don't know anything, but I'm making the assumption that he is going to be back in the WWE at some point, whether it be this year or for the Royal Rumble, he'll be back. And so I can see him, kind of like sucking up a little bit and, praising TNA and the WWE. And hell, maybe he goes to TNA instead. And he does something there, and shows up in WWE or whatever. Either way, he's not going back to AEW. I don't know if I agree with um the exit strategy he's taking with kind of bashing AEW a little bit. Because we all remember when Chris Jericho left WWE and joined AEW, he was like, "Oh, I don't need the Hall of Fame, who needs that shit or whatever." Something along those lines. And again, like, why do you take that route if deep down you're going to go back and be in the Hall of Fame and want to retire on your own terms over there? I don't understand that exit strategy, and um, I, in a way, I understand what he's doing, but I don't agree with it at all.
But how much of it is how much of it is like a worked shoot? Because, I mean, there was that article, I think, God, it was probably at the beginning of the year, where The Rock was talking about everything that you see is pretty much a work. Any kind of media you see is pretty much a work. So when you kind of view things like that, I'm always like, well, how much of it is just them kind of playing the media a little bit? And I don't think that Chris Jericho is, beyond beyond doing that. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays. And obviously, it's kind of in his character as well, because he was always a menace on the mic, anyway, and very arrogant on the mic. I mean, that's just part and parcel of his character anyway. So hearing him say that, I'm really not surprised. What I do find interesting, though, is obviously him kind of talking about other companies and things like that, because I'm of the opinion that, if WWE doesn't bring in this fresh talent that we've spoken about earlier, that you're going to see an incremental rise of independent companies taking the disillusioned fans from WWE, and you'll see more of a competitive market for pro wrestling. So I'm wondering if he's just covering some of his bases from that point of view as well.
I absolutely wouldn't put that past Jericho. And like you just said, Lolly, I could absolutely see him working the people online here because the statement itself is just mental. I see it and I was like, what have you just said? Because again, as Josh said, you watch Bound for Glory. I mean, it is TNA's biggest show of the year alongside Slammiversary. It is their WrestleMania, and you've got what was it? You know, about 5 to 7,000 maybe. I can't quite remember. Um,
Hold on. I have the exact number. Just
God.
I'll find it.
Well, Josh finds that it was around that anyway, which is obviously great for TNA, but he's
Mhm.
comparing that to like Dynamite, which is just the weekly show. So I don't know how you can make that comparison when AEW literally did All In at bloody in Texas, that massive stadium. So
Mm.
trying to be like, oh, the TNA are the number two company in the world right now. Um, I don't know. I thought it was such a ridiculous statement to make that I thought the same as what you've just said. Like, I was like, I feel like he's just working people here because that's
Yeah.
not true. No matter what you think. I thought it was a bit ridiculous. But yeah, I agree with what Josh said. That I when everyone was trying to work out who was going to be returning, no, I'm not saying he's returning for the John Cena tournament at all, but when everyone was throwing around the likes of Edge, I said from the beginning there is a much higher chance of Chris Jericho coming back this year or next than Edge, and I stand by that here. I think
Mm.
we'll absolutely see Chris Jericho back in WWE. Is it something I necessarily want to see? I don't know. I'm a massive Chris Jericho fan. I always have been, but pretty much since he won the AEW World Championship at the beginning, became the inaugural champ, the stuff he's been doing has just gone piqued my interest less and less and less. So it's at the point where like I just want to kind of remember Chris Jericho for what I do remember in those mid 2000s, right the way up and
Mm.
then all the way through to the 2016 era, Festival of Friendship, all that great times. So I wouldn't be too interested. I mean, don't get me wrong, if he comes back with a completely new character, maybe he takes a an MVP role like he did with the Hot Business,
Mm.
and is kind of even doing like a Paul Heyman what he's doing with the Vision. Maybe he is looking after some younger talent. I would maybe be cool with that to see. But apart from that, I don't think there's too much I really want to see from Chris Jericho in WWE at the minute. Though I do still love him.
It'll be interesting because he's been working out. He's in great shape at the moment, so
Yes.
it makes me think that he is probably coming back this side of Christmas in some capacity.
So the attendance for Bountiful Glory was 7,794.
Ah, yes, there you go. So yeah, you compare that. You're comparing that to like a Dynamite, whereas this is the biggest show of the year. But then AEW went and sold out the massive stadium in Texas. I don't. I think the statement was so ridiculous that I was like, part of this has to be a work, surely.
I would hope so. I would hope it's a work and he's not just you know being an idiot. Um so yeah, though let's hope that he's working us. Um we are gonna dive into some AEW stuff now. Firstly, Jeff Jarrett is no longer the manager of the AEW live events. Because when was the last time they did a live event?
Let's
Um,
say they did live events.
yeah, so they did at one point, um, but they haven't in a while. Jeff Jarrett was the manager of that. And it also wasn't bringing in a lot of people. And I feel like if you are the manager of live events, you should be responsible for butts and seats on those live events. And obviously, Jeff Jarrett wasn't doing the job properly. Um, and you know what? Every right to remove him from that position. He still is with the company. They're just, I guess, not doing live events at all anymore. Um, but yeah, that was a little story that came out that Jeff Jarrett's no longer running the live events. That's if they even plan to do it. Um, we're gonna get into some other potential AEW stuff with their potential upcoming shows that they have and some things that they've trademarked. But Brew, did you have Lolly? I know you're kind of out of the loop with AEW stuff. Um, Brew, did you have any thoughts about this?
So I mean, I didn't know about it until you just said there. To be fair, I didn't even know one that they did live events and that Jeff Jarrett was in charge of them. So, I can't. I guess I can't say too much. I guess it makes sense if it's not working. They're not making the money for it. I guess they can it and try and spend that money elsewhere. Give people better contracts. How about that? We do that instead. Give them more money because they deserve it. So let's go with that instead.
So before we jump into the trademark stuff, last week, Rue gave me the breaking news that I didn't see for some reason before I got on the podcast that Hiroshi Tanahashi's and sorry, Lolly, I might lose you a little bit here, but we'll get you to jump in on the trademark stuff or something. Hiroshi Tanahashi is facing Kazuchika Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 20 for Tanahashi's final match. Kazuchika Okada came out and confronted Hiroshi Tanahashi. There was rumors that it was going to be Shinsuke Nakamura as his final match, but I think a lot of us knew, like we talked about last week, that it wasn't going to be Shinsuke Nakamura because, WWE is WWE, and they are very petty. So it's Kazuchika Okada. Now, as somebody who doesn't watch New Japan a whole lot, but knows, bits and pieces of it, um, I understand why they went with Okada, but at the same time, it's not, you know, the most interesting thing because if I'm not mistaken, um, Okada's last match before he went over to AEW was against Tanahashi.
Yeah, it was.
And that may be, a reason why people may be like, you know what, they could have done something better, but at the same time, could they really have? Like, I think Okada may be your best bet for this. Um, they could have went with Takeshita, but that wouldn't have made sense because he's the IWGP heavyweight title. This definitely surefires that this is going to main event Wrestle Kingdom now that Okada is his opponent. Um, but I couldn't think of anybody else they could have potentially put in this spot over Kazuchika Okada.
Yeah, it's as you said, like look, in a dream world, would I've preferred Shinsuke Nakamura? Absolutely. If I could have got that match, hell yeah. But as you I think they did what the best they could with what they had. Um and look, and as you said, you're totally right. Like people being like saying, "Oh, the Okada, like, it's a bit uninspiring." Yeah, but it's the equivalent of if they were just to turn around and say John Cena's last match against like CM Punk. It's a match we've seen like a million times over, but you also just know that it's going to be a good match and a fitting match, I guess, for Tanahashi's final one. So, yeah, absolutely. It's certainly piqued my interest. I don't think I've watched a Wrestle Kingdom since 2019. I can't remember if I watched it in 2020 or not. I don't think I did. So I've not watched it for a while, but this is the first year that I'm kind of maybe it's just with being a lot more ingrained with wrestling this year than I have been probably since about 2019. But I'm kind of getting the itch to watch New Japan again, so I think I'm going to tune into Wrestle Kingdom this year. So I guess I get to see Tanahashi's last match, which is always nice.
So I mentioned that AEW trademarked some stuff. Um, and Lolly, I'll get you to jump in on this because some of the stuff
Mhm.
they trademarked um sounds like potential shows that they're going to run. And um I said I wanted you to jump in because of how simple and basic these trademarks sound. So they have AEW Fire, AEW Blitz, AEW Firestorm, and AEW Tidal Wave. So these all sound like, TV specials. Some of them sound like an extra show to be added. And I don't think that this is going to work. Because they had a Rampage at one point in time along with Collision. Nobody watched Rampage. Like I took a break from AEW or watching wrestling and as a whole for a little bit, just because of like personal stuff that was going on at the time. So when I came back, I thought Rampage was still a thing until I realized, oh, they got rid of it. So um I don't know how well this is going to work. Like, obviously, they created Collision for a guy that doesn't even work there anymore. Um, so like that in itself, and I don't watch Collision, and I know a lot of other people don't either. They look at the spoilers and be like, not worth the watch, and that's usually the case. I don't think adding another show will do anything for them. Um, in terms of these names, it sounds like they went onto ChatGPT and asked them to generate names for shows.
Yeah.
Um, because man, this is the best you can come up with. Like AEW Fire is like there's nothing behind that at all. It's fire. There's nothing there. AEW Blitz, I'm like, are they gonna do some like sort of like football kind of theme thing? Like I liked NFL Blitz a few years ago. But so I don't know if they're gonna do something football related. AEW Firestorm, just it's literally AEW Fire, and it just sounds worse. AEW Tidal Wave may be the best sounding one on this, but even that is just like okay, it sounds very chat GPT-ish. Um, but yeah, I don't like any of these trademarks.
No, the tidal wave one reminds me of or was it WCW, the beach event that they did that was a bit catastrophic. So potentially that could be what they're aiming for. Firestorm sounds like some sort of weird Marvel cartoon character to me. But I mean, so are they, I mean, I guess we don't know. Are they designed to be like pay-per-views, like annual pay-per-views? Are they going to be shows? Are they trying, obviously I don't know too much about AEW. My first foray into that was watching the Texas Death Match, which was
Hell of
well,
a welcome.
out of the frying pan straight into the fire, I think, with that one. I mean, they might as well just register AEW Fork. To be quite honest, I think that would probably be selling more tickets. But how? I guess the question is, how is it set up? Do they have like I guess like a show like you've got WWE NXT? Do they have like the equivalent of that? Is that something they could be potentially looking into?
Maybe. Sorry, bro, I'll let you go in a second. But that's like along the lines of what I was thinking as well. Are they going to have some sort of like developmental kind of thing?
Mm.
Because it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for them to do that at the same time because technically that's what they've made Ring of Honor to be. Once upon a time, Ring of Honor was one of the best independent promotions in the world. Um, but now they've, turned that into something that nobody really watches. So, I don't agree with the idea of having another show in the first place, but I can definitely see them doing something like that.
I think that's actually a really good point both of you made there because I think it was only last week or the week before there was all that news that broke about AEW wanting to start a developmental brand, um,
Mm.
which could tie into this somehow. But as you said, Josh, like, I know they've already got Ring of Honor, so I don't know, maybe this is like a weird version of AEW Evolve almost. The developmental of the developmental. For them. But no, those names are atrocious, especially AEW Fire. I was going to make the joke at least WWE decided to stick great balls before their version of that.
Maybe it's
Um,
just so that they can put emojis into things on
Oh
TikTok.
God.
oh, probably. Yeah, they definitely can fall up with AI. That's a horrendously named trademarks there. But yeah, I think it's an interesting point, definitely developmental. I could maybe see them doing that because maybe Tony Khan sees it more like even though Ring of Honor is kind of like their developmental, maybe he still wants to keep that as Ring of Honor and keep it its own entity and have it
Mm.
whilst joined on but still kind of separate. Because as you said, Josh, it is a bit of a shame what's happened. Like I used to love watching Ring of Honor, like back in the day, especially with like Kevin Steen, El Generico, all of them on it. And Cody Rhodes later on when he came out into it. So maybe he just wants to keep it separate. And he's like, right, we're actually going to have our own version of a developmental where we can bring in like college athletes, etc., to try and build them up. Um, but they need some better names than what they just provided because those are atrocious.
Um, so we also had AEW Blood and Guts Dynamite this past Wednesday. It was a three-match card, but what do you expect when you have matches like Blood and Guts that go as long as they do? Um, so we kicked off the night with the women's Blood and Guts match. Now, there's a lot of people praising this match. Didn't I don't want to say didn't enjoy it, but I didn't think it was that great. Um, I think a lot of the women individually looked good. Like Sky Blue looked fantastic. That is not a biased opinion. She
Yes,
was
it does.
uh she was bleeding like 9 minutes into that match. Or not even 9 minutes into Dynamite, so it was like a lot quicker into the match, and she was bleeding out for like the next 50 minutes of that match. So kudos to her for doing that. I think Sky Blue looked really badass there. Mercedes Monet was Mercedes Monet. She also, the tables on this episode of Dynamite Blood and Guts, those tables, you really have to throw your opponent into those tables for them to break, because man, those tables were not budging in that women's match. And I think that's part of what I didn't enjoy. Like, a lot of the match here felt botchy, and it was your typical it was like your typical like two people or a certain amount of people are doing something, and then the rest of the field is just not doing anything at all. That's kind of what it was. And I didn't enjoy that. I never enjoy when they do something like that. Like in things like the Royal Rumble or something like that, it makes a little bit more sense because you have 30 people coming out, you need to conserve your energy, fine. But it's a blood and guts match. It's very similar to WarGames, which I find it very convenient that they did blood and guts right now. But that's beside the point. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the women's blood and guts match. And I guess we can just talk about that, and then we'll talk about the rest of Dynamite.
Yeah, well, I haven't caught up on that yet, so I'm a little bit behind. But I've seen a couple of clips on it, and I do wonder if the praise of it is maybe just like from the pure like shock value on the amount of blood potentially that's happened. Because I know that from reading some of the reviews on it that although there's no serious injuries, there has been a lot of knocks and bumps that have been taken from it. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks how that interferes with potential any upcoming matches. But I also agree with you that it's obviously interesting that they've done the timing of that around the time of WarGames. It's almost like Monday Night Wars all over again in a weird way.
I totally agree with what you just said there, Lolly. I think a lot of the praise does come from that aspect of the match because I made this point when I was doing my predictions for it, where I said, would it go as crazy as, because we know what we're going to get from John Moxley and Darby Allin being in a match. We already knew the men's one was going to be what it was going to be. So I
Mm-hmm.
made the point of would they go as crazy? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's the first one. Maybe they hold it back a bit. No, they went full balls to the wall and fair play to them because a lot of great individual performances in here, as you said, Josh. To Sky Blue looked amazing as well, of course, which was really nice to see. It was nice because we know, apart from Josh and his own feelings towards Tony Storm, but we all know how good Mercedes, Tony, Chris Statlander recently, like how amazing they are. But it was nice to see the likes of like Sky Blue like really shine in this match. But yeah, I do agree. I was a little bit awkward at times. I will maybe also just put that down to being the first one. Like I remember when they did like the first women's Money in the Bank match. It's just the more you do it, on an annual basis, the more it will just become to second nature. They'll start to get used to how spots work, how timings work. And he said you've got all the other things to think about as well, obviously. I mean, if I was told, hey, you're going to go in there and you're going to get busted wide open and then you still need to remember the rest of this match for 50 minutes, I would probably also get quite lost. Um, so yeah, I think it's probably you'll just come with the experience. Plus, a lot of the people in this match are still incredibly young. So yeah, I think I'd put it down to that. I do agree with you. It was a little bit awkward in places, but I mean, I think individually, a lot of them were like stars. And I was quite happy to see the heels pick up the win here, not just because I predicted it, because I actually thought it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think the heels going over was the right decision. Um I will say, AEW officials obviously cannot work a door properly, because that door just kept getting opened consistently, even in the men's blood and guts match. So I don't know how I feel about them consistently fighting on the outside of the cage. It's the cage, it's supposed to keep you inside, and you're supposed to just brutalize each other inside the cage. Like if they did it like every now and then, like it was a big spot, then sure. Um, Tekla, by the way, absolutely decked that referee. Had no remorse whatsoever. Um, but yeah, I think like you said, Rue, they all looked good individually. Um, I also had a problem with what's supposed to be the glass, where they pour the glass onto the mat and they take a bump and it's brutal, but then a few minutes later they're all just rolling around in the glass like it doesn't hurt anymore. Like I don't really enjoy that. Um, like we even saw it in the men's one, which we'll get into as well. Um, but yeah, that was the women's blood and guts match. I keep wanting to say war games match. They're so similar. Um, we had a couple things in between. Like we had FTR confront Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. They were looking to attack them, but then Brodito made the save. Um, that was a fun little thing to add there. Um, we had a Falls Count Anywhere match between Hangman Adam Page and Powerhouse Hobbs for the AEW World Championship. Um, Fun match, as expected. They fought all over the arena. Um, Hangman Adam Page retains, and then after Samoa Joe comes out for the attack, but eventually gets fought off. Um, who came out to save Hangman again? Or did he fight
Um,
him off on his? He didn't fight him off on his own. Um,
I've completely drawn a blank.
I can't even remember who came out to save him. Either way, after Hangman Adam Page challenged Samoa Joe to guess what? A steel cage match. My goodness, is this like it's like the month of steel cage matches apparently. Like we have War Games going on in WWE, Blood and Guts, and now a steel cage match between Hangman Adam Page and Samoa Joe. I
I got
understand
this.
why they went this route for Hangman and Joe, because Samoa Joe has the ops, and they don't want them being allowed in, and they need a stipulation. But man, so many steel cage matches. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all these cage matches, and I feel like they maybe could have done something a little bit different. But either way, it should still be a fun match.
I think I'll let Rue take this one because I'm still on catch up with
Yeah.
AEW.
No, you're absolutely fine. Yeah, I was just quickly googling. Yeah, yeah, it was Kingston and Hook. I completely forgot they came out to save
Right.
Hangman.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, no, really fun match. I'm glad Hobbs got to shine. I love Powerhouse Hobbs. He's someone I don't know if he will ever get it, but I really want him to become AEW World Champion one day. I'm a big, big fan of his. So I'm glad that they had put on a really good match here. But yeah, as you said, and I totally agree, another steel cage match we're getting for Joe and Hangman. I mean, it'll still be great because it's Hangman. He's amazing in Samoa Joe. Isn't half bad himself, funnily enough. So yeah, it will still be a fantastic match. But yes, as you said, there is a lot going on that side. But yeah, it was a very, very fun match again. It's one of these. It's kind of like the Cena and Dominik match we talked about earlier. I was just glad to see Hobbs get this sort of, or be put in this position and allowed to shine, and I think he absolutely made the most of it. So I'm happy for him.
We then went to the men's blood and guts match. Um, this, like Ru said, was everything we expected it to be. It was violent, it was brutal. Darby Allin, of course, almost died again, by going through a flaming table. Was literally set on fire. His back was on flames, was in flames, I should say. Um, yeah, brutal match all throughout. I actually, in my TikTok preview of this, predicted the end of the match exactly how it happened. Kyle O'Reilly, put John Moxley in a submission and made him tap out. That made the most sense because they've been doing this thing where, Kyle O'Reilly and John Moxley have had a couple of matches. And they've had this thing where the Death Riders keep quitting and tapping out, and I'm like, okay, it's probably just gonna be Kyle O'Reilly tapping out Moxley. Um, Again with the glass, Moxley is tapping out on the glass, and you know what? It hurt in the beginning of the match, but it doesn't hurt anymore. To just slam your hand on the glass. So I think that's they need to do something about that if they can. Just to protect that a little bit more. Um, but other than that, this match was great. It was everything I expected it to be. It was brutal, it was violent, and it was a really fun match.
Yeah, I thought I'd jump in here. Yeah, I totally agree. It said it was. I know it sounds really boring saying, "Oh, it was as I expected to be unpredictable," but it was. It's what I wanted, and I was really happy to see it and how it was executed. As you said, Darby Allin is a maniac, and I don't think I'll ever stop saying that. I hope he's okay. Ironically, I guess in storyline, no, because he got hurt by Elliot. I was going to say maybe Moxley tapping out in the glass is fine because it's Moxley, but yeah, he was hurt by it earlier. Yeah, but I think what you said, George, is actually so actually you got it spot on with the prediction. It's still a bold prediction to make, and fair play to them for doing it, for having Kyle tapping out Moxley. Like maybe they're going to position Kyle in a bigger position. Like Kyle O'Reilly's always been one of those big what ifs for me. He was my favorite member of Undisputed Era. Maybe that's a bit controversial to say. I don't know. I'm a massive Kyle O'Reilly fan. I would have loved to see him as NXT champion. So if this is the start of maybe a bit of a singles run for Kyle, I'm all for it. But yeah, in the end, I said great match. It was what I expected was going to happen. And I said I did think Moxley was also going to be the one to either take the pin or tap out as well. I just didn't think it was going to be Kyle, so that's cool to see. I'm glad as well it kept Mark Briscoe looking strong. I said I think he has I guess, slight spoilers slash not full spoilers. I think he's in for a big week next week, Mark Briscoe, and hopefully a good one at that as well. So yeah, overall, very very fun match as predicted is what we thought was going to happen, and I'm glad we got it.
Yeah. We do have our full year predictions next week because that's when that's happening. But I am in agreement. I think Mark Briscoe is winning that TNT title because he can't join. I don't see him joining the Don Callis family. It just doesn't make sense. Um, However, that did remind me of something else that happened on Dynamite. We had more tension or whatever between Don Callis and the Young Bucks. So I wanted to throw this question at you, Rue, because obviously it's very, I don't want to say clear, but it seems like the Young Bucks are turning babyface soon. Um, I think that this is one of those cases where it makes sense to drag it out a little bit. Um, but I don't know. How do you feel about that? Do you think that they're turning babyface soon?
It kind of seems that way, which I don't know how I feel about. I just I don't know if it's just what they're currently doing. I think I prefer the Bucks as heels personally. Um, like they're just assholes because they know they're so good, and that's what I like about them. So I don't quite know how I feel about them turning babyface. It looks like that is the path they're going to go down. And as you said, I would also, if we want to drag it out for a bit and then have it be a big moment, I don't think I'm cool with it. Especially if it end up being proven wrong. I always say this in wrestling. I am at the most happy when I'm proven wrong. I love to be proven wrong in wrestling. It's my favorite thing because then it gets me excited. The biggest one this year, we spoke about it at length, is Naomi becoming out as being one of the best heels of the year for me. When it was me at the start of the year saying, I don't know if she can do it, and completely proved me wrong. I loved it. And this is maybe a similar to that. If they can go and have this incredible babyface run, cool. At the minute, I'm not interested in seeing it, but it does look like it's the way it's going to go.
Yeah. But that was AEW Dynamite Blood and Guts. And that is everything that we have on the headlines in pro wrestling this week. As always, we always want to know what you guys have to say as well and what your thoughts are. You guys are just as big a part of the show as we are. So make sure you drop your comments down below, whether you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, and let me know. Obviously, like I mentioned at the start, there's a variety of other ways you can let me know your thoughts, whether it be the Kayfabe Central website, the Kayfabe Central Discord server, and all those good things. They are all linked down below. So make sure you guys go check that stuff out. Yeah, make sure you guys go follow me on TikTok as well. I have a lot more things coming soon. Some more interesting things on the TikTok side of things as well. There will be a lot more YouTube shorts posted as well. Because I mentioned a few weeks ago, YouTube is now a little bit stupid with their rules in terms of going live on YouTube. So it's gonna be a lot more of that, a lot more stuff coming your way. Obviously, tomorrow we have the kayfabe recap that I will be going solo for. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Ru, I'll let you plug your stuff and then I'll hand it over to Lolly.
Sure, yeah. As always, find me on wrestling on TikTok. Said a lot of wrestling content there. We do predictions, live reactions. Just put my reaction to Zack Ryder come out last night. So you can go check that out there now. As well as a bunch of fantasy booking, talking about storylines, wrestling news, etc., etc. You can also find me on YouTube as well. I don't really post on there. It's something I do want to eventually get on to doing. So that's Ruin Wrestling as well.
Lovely. And my username on TikTok is It's Lolly Holland, and that's also the same on Instagram as well. I cover a load of different things. So I react to Raw SmackDown. I also heavily into nostalgia wrestling and just a load of other random musings as well.
Awesome. I will be back tomorrow, like I mentioned, for the kayfabe recap tomorrow. I don't know when throughout the day it's going to be posted. So make sure you guys keep your notifications on so you can be alerted and notified when that is up. And until then, I will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.